Think of a conflict that has affected you personally, and as you do so, be mindful of the emotions that arise. By revisiting past memories of conflict, your emotional awareness may lead you to remember feeling anger at having been disrespected, regretful for not saying that perfect comeback, or frustrated at having been misunderstood.
We may even become fixated on the different possible outcomes should either party have responded differently. And even though we may try to avoid these feelings, we're often left feeling disappointed in all those involved, especially ourselves.
These emotional responses many times erode our ability to productively respond to conflict.
Because despite the aversion to conflict that these emotions indicate, conflict can be incredibly productive, not just for the growth of the people involved, but also for our own interpersonal skills and professional and character development.
Everyone encounters difficult people, and learning how to respond in those situations in ways that result in reduced stress for all those involved will significantly improve our relationships.
So, how are we as humans, with the very unrefined history of conflict, meant to deal with these emotions? Because whether we're feeling angry, frustration, fear, or anxiety, our ability to regulate and be proactive with our own emotions can be compromised.
By engaging in strategies for dealing with difficult people, we can work to replace those feelings with satisfaction and understanding. When we feel those trademark emotions of conflict, whether on the offense, defense, or anywhere in between, we are allowing our brain to immediately react according to the easy, instinctual options for conflict.
The drastic changes that COVID-19 has necessitated mean that for many of us, myself included, re-entering the world of actual people will be uncomfortable, stressful, and mentally exhausting. Because there is no going back to the life we led before this pandemic. We are changed as a society, and that change can manifest itself in the perception of difficult people.
But it doesn't have to be that way. And this is how we can change it. Respect for oneself is crucial in order to hold respect for others. The essence of respect is not necessarily to agree with or even like someone. It is the act of acknowledging and accepting the presence and differences of that person.
By respecting ourselves, we are allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, to accept that we are sometimes right and often wrong, to be thoughtful in our actions, genuine in our reactions, and proactive in our perspective. But how do we mindfully practice respect for others?
Putting yourself in another person's shoes is a major component of this. It is a state where one not only perceives, reacts, and understands what someone else is feeling, but also feels what that person is perceived to be feeling.
It is the extension of that person's state of mind into another's, based on sensory indicators detected by the empathic brain, including facial expressions, body language, and speech.
To manage differences we encounter every day, empathy must be practiced in order to understand different perspectives and feel respect for others. In doing so, a channel is created that allows for the traffic of different thoughts and opinions to pass openly and respectfully. Respect also requires the basics of proper communication: thoughtfulness, empathy, and listening. None of them are easy. But then the alternative of reacting and offending and defending isn't any easier. Here is an example of conflict gone wrong. Here lies the body of William J., who died maintaining his right of way. He was right, dead right as he sped along, but he's just as dead as if he were wrong. We have all been William J., steadfast in our opinion, the one to negate all decisions aside from our own, and allow pride to hinder happiness and harmony. But why does it matter whether you're right or wrong when the end is rejection and hurt? Why are we only limited to the three primitive functions of flight, fight, or freeze? Why do we not learn and improve?
Well, it takes a lot of missteps and experience to come to this realization. But here's a gem of truth. Abraham Lincoln had a resolve to approach conflict that would have saved William J's life.
Better to give your path to a dog than be bitten by him in contesting for the right. Even killing the dog will not cure the bite.
Even if this means relinquishing your right of way or yielding by saying Dale Carnegie's words for compromise.
Well, now look, I thought otherwise, but I may be wrong. I frequently am. And if I am wrong, I want to be put right. Let's examine the facts. The final tactic for mitigating the harmful effects of conflict is mindful and generous forgiveness. One of the most difficult things we can learn to do is let go of anger we feel is rightfully earned because of wrongdoings committed against us.
But as I have come to learn, not everything is about me or you or any single person. Forgiveness was a struggle because the people I had dealt with left me angry. You could say that if there were to be a villain in this story, that would have been me. But then I realized that they never intended to hurt me, that it was never about me and had everything to do with them. This notion resulted in a slow rewriting of the events, where I am no longer filled with vitriol and just waiting to say my invectives. No, now I am learning to heal, to use the energy I had spent on anger to forgive both myself and them.
This means that forgiveness as a skill is invaluable across the whole spectrum of conflict, whether that means resolving minor water cooler misunderstandings or lengthy disputes amongst friends and family. The feeling that one has the right to feel angry or sad can be very addicting, and paired with the fact that it's not something you can lock away in a cabinet, it can fester for such a long time we forget what exactly provoked us in the first place. So in the end, we're only left with how people made us feel, which is more difficult to recover from.
Of course, the most common case of this phenomenon is the Montagues and the Capulets from Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. The families had been at odds with each other for so long that they were filled with an irrational blind hatred.
But what can we possibly take from Shakespeare's metaphors? Well, the famous theologian and politician Reinhold Niebuhr said this about forgiveness: "Nothing we can do, however virtuous, can be accomplished alone. Therefore, we are saved by love. No virtuous act is quite as virtuous from the standpoint of friend or foe as it is from our standpoint. Therefore, we are saved by the final form of love, which is forgiveness."
From this excerpt, we can take two new meanings of forgiveness and love. Love simply being the ability to reconcile anger, conflict, and differences, to collectively conduct worthwhile and meaningful lives. This type of love is the union between empathic communication and respect, overlaid with the filter of living life through your heart.
Niebuhr uses love to define forgiveness, which allows us to view the act from another perspective, where we're not redeeming the hurt we felt, but giving ourselves permission to acknowledge our pain and move forward by forgiving those who inflicted the hurt. But perhaps before we can forgive our friends or foes, we must first engage in mindful inner forgiveness.
We can achieve this by respectfully acknowledging the fact that no virtuous act is quite as virtuous as from the standpoint of friend or foe as it is from our standpoint. And forgiving our egos before we forgive friend or foe. We forgive our egos by adding flexibility and give to the resistance bands that are our ideals. But how are we meant to forgive those we can't understand?
How do we manage differences in people who refuse to open their channels to us? When they block traditional forms of communication, and we're left on the outside looking in, scared to step forward, scared to leave. How can we grapple with our mind's innate need to live in a pack for survival when we are rejected?
My process begins with learning to not forgive their actions, but their being asleep while I was awake to my hurt. No one knows what happens behind closed doors. And as much as I can try to understand the reactions and the reasons, people's deepest and darkest fears and secrets that drive them to hide their vulnerability are rarely near the surface.
So in reality, difficult people are just different, and it's the combination of unresolved differences that results in a difficult situation. Honing your ability to let go of anger and forgive the ego paints a calm, unobstructed view of the cloud we call conflict. By clearing this view, we are able to see what truly matters and how to work together with love to achieve it.
Thank you.